And once again, we are live. Welcome back to the Tesla Talks podcast, folks. It is the second week of May 2020. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for sticking with us. We are live on YouTube. Anyone that's joining us, thanks for joining in. It's a little earlier this week. We figured we'd try experiment with the time and stuff ahead, and this time we're doing it a little bit earlier. So if you hear any noise coming in the background, my family is above me, and they're like a little herd of elephants, if elephants are herds.
Your family is loud.
They are loud. I have an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old, so yes, they can be loud.
They are loud. I can hear them from my place.
So. Without any further ado, folks, let me introduce our guests on tonight's show. Tonight, or today, I guess we can say. So we'll start at the top. Anthony from Tesla Milton. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yep. And we haven't had this guest in a while. Paul from, as well, also known as Tesla Canuck. Thanks for joining us, Paul.
Thanks for having me back, Dax. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming on. Like I said, we're going to get to the Tesla news in a second. By the way, and I've seen some of your videos with your guitar in the background. That's a cool guitar. We got to
I have a collection.
That. Yes, yeah. You do.
It's my other hobby.
It's your other hobby? Awesome. Welcome to Jason in the chat room. He's saying hi. Folks, hello. At all, if you're in the chat room and you're watching this live or you're listening to it, you can look away. You don't have to always be looking. If you have any questions, jot it down in the comments there, and I will, along with my guests, we will hammer out the questions as best as we can. Before we get started with the news, let me just do some house cleaning and or housekeeping, I guess you can say. House cleaning too. If you look around, yeah. If I was to tilt this camera, you'd see the house cleaning is needed to be done. We're in a state of a pandemic here, so. Anyways, housekeeping. You guys can hear us, obviously, here on YouTube. After the stream is over, it'll always be on YouTube. But if you don't want to watch it, or you can't watch it, you want to take us on the go, whether in your car or, if you're going for a walk, going for a run, doing a workout, house cleaning or anything like that, speaking of house cleaning, you can get us on two formats. You can get us in your car and tune in radio. All you have to do is search for Tesla Talks in your car in the search engine or search thing, and it'll show up. Or you can get us on the Apple Podcast system just by searching also for Tesla Talks. You'll find us there. If you have any questions that you want, and we do have some questions tonight, and someone or a couple guys emailed, so I'm going to pull those up in a little bit. But if you have any questions during the week when we're not broadcasting or we're not doing this live, you can send those questions, those burning questions that you've had all week and you want to know an answer to, send it to Tesla Talks Questions with an S at gmail.com. Once again, it's Tesla Talks Questions at gmail.com. And that's all the housekeeping that I have. You guys have anything to say before we continue? Or start up, I guess you could say?
I'm glad it was warm today.
Yeah, it was. I was gonna, what? Before we begin, I don't mean to be so, official and all business and everything. How are you guys doing? I haven't heard or seen you guys in a while. How's everyone doing?
I'm still in hibernation.
Yes, aren't we all? But family and everything's doing well.
Yeah, no, everyone's doing good. Actually, I did get out for a drive the other day. It was really nice to get into the Tesla and, remember the good old days.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. Anthony, how you doing?
I'm kind of losing track of what day it is. Of course, that happened like about 6 weeks ago, so I have to really think about it now. But yeah, things are going okay. It was nice today. It was nice and warm, and as you know, Samantha and I went out and dropped some things off to some local friends.
Yes.
Yeah, for the most part, we've been staying in and just doing the stay-at-home thing like we're asked to. But today was a nice day, and we figured out we'll just go out and run a couple of quick errands. So,
for people at home, if you don't know what Anthony's talking about when he said dropping some stuff off, this is what, I'll hold it up to the camera. I don't know if the camera will be able to pick it up there. That's one of many little decals or stickers that Anthony was nice enough to bring me. Anthony, do you want to tell everyone where that's from, where you got that, or if you want to keep it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, as people know, I'm friends with G at Tesla Bros, and he had a special on Elon Musk on April 20th or 420, and he had a 420 package of stickers you could get So I ordered a few of those and gave them out to some of my friends here in the Toronto area. But yeah, there's 4 of them. There's a super bottle. Not sure you can see that. There we go. That's all right. And there's Elon getting his getting his weed on. And then there's this, which is actually not an octopus.
I was going to ask you, what is that?
It's a bud, I think.
Oh, I thought it was an octavalve or something.
No, and then, yeah, I guess so. And then of course we all know what this is. So Cybertruck. But yeah, so it was just a little thing that G did for 420 or for Elon Musk Day, as we took to calling it in the community. And so I thought it was it'd be nice to just grab a few of those for some local friends and wait till the weather is nice and drive by and drop them off. So in a social distancing aware manner, of course.
Yes, well, I appreciate it. It was a nice surprise on my door. For anyone that knows, Anthony doesn't live too far from me. We all live in the same town. So he was able to drop it off. And like you said, social distancing. I didn't even know it was at my door until he sent me a message saying, check your front porch, type of thing. So it was all good. And that's cool that he did that. And that's a nice little unique thing that G did.
Yeah, I didn't know what was going to be in what it was going to be in there. I just ordered it and figured, well, we'll find out. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. I like the Cybertruck one. That's nice. And yeah, I gave Samantha one of these with Elon. So she's like, "What's he doing?" He's smoking a cigarette.
Yes, exactly.
Special cigarette.
Yeah,
Yes.
special cigarettes. Well, those
Yes.
are legal in Ontario. So actually in Canada now.
In
So
Canada, yes. Okay, without any further ado, let's start up with the news. Anthony, I sent you a private message. You might want to give that a check while I'm bringing this up. But let's start off with the first bit of news here. And you know, I mean, can we all agree that this is probably the biggest thing that's happened in the Tesla community thus far this week? I mean, there's no doubt about it. This is obviously
well, it's only Wednesday, so. You know.
Exactly. I want to get everyone's take on it because I'll get everyone's take and then I'll tell you my take on it. But back on May 11th, I guess that was Monday. You know, we talked about last week what happened with Elon's tweets and everything, and then what happened when he went back and forth and said he's leaving California and he was all ticked off and everything. And we talked about that last week. So fast forward to May 11th. Elon, well, I guess you can say Tesla. Elon puts out this tweet, says, Tesla's restarting production today against Alameda County rules. I will be on the front line, or on the line with everyone else. If anyone is arrested, I ask that it only be me. 520,000 likes.
I can totally see, you know, like I'm telling you, my views have changed quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. So let me get started. I'm hot to talk about this.
Yes, no, I want your input.
Yeah, you know, I definitely am finding myself shifting towards Elon's point of view on this as this thing drags on, right? I think that what's happening is you know, people are just getting tired of this, right? I know I am, right? And I understand that, you know, there's safety precautions that need to be met. But the point is, I have gone through that 38-page PDF of the employee handbook for Tesla to go back to work. And I got to tell you, it's one of the most comprehensive ones that I've seen. And I think if, you know, Elon is making and his team is making an argument that they are ready to have employees come back and they've put the proper training in place, they put the proper safety measures in place, then not being allowed to open is just bullshit. You know, can't say the real thing, so you know what I mean. You know, they should be able to open. I think they've got a comprehensive plan. Let's get back to work. That's my view now.
No, you know what? I sort of echo yours, but I want to pick up on Anthony's opinion.
I mean, I don't have an issue with Elon, you know, wanting to get things back to work. You know, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with some of what he said, you know, a few weeks ago regarding coronavirus and stuff like that. But, you know, when it comes to the business, it's obviously something that he knows a lot about, or at least, you know, he knows what the boots on the ground situation is in the factory. So I think as long as they're taking the appropriate steps to make sure that everything is going to be done in a safe and healthy manner, then there's not really any reason why they shouldn't be allowed to open up. Obviously the problem with something like this is now he's kind of, sort of going up against the man, so to speak, and you nothing came of it. Obviously, we already know that this was sent out a few days ago now, and nothing. When was that? May 11th, so that was like 2 days ago. Yeah, and nothing really came of it. They opened up and they did what they did, and no cops showed up, and so it was almost like nothing really happened. So I think it's fine, but I think that part of this is we can't just have business leaders saying, well, I'm going to do what I want to do just because, right? There still has to be some kind of overall plan. Now I understand that. We're in Canada, and the situation up here is a little bit different. It's just one of those things where maybe in California and stuff like that, it does sound like it's a bit more not well planned.
I think what's happened here is that over the past couple of weeks, like prior to, let's say, last week or so, there was a lot of hyperbole coming out of Elon, fascist this, Constitution this, yada yada,
freedom that.
Yeah, but I think what's happened here is that his team has obviously taken over and they've put together a comprehensive plan. And if you haven't seen this 38-page PDF, I encourage you to go take a look at it.
The playbook.
The playbook. It's an absolutely fantastic piece of work. And that's how he should be leading his argument, not in some inflammatory way about moving to Texas or all this kind of stuff, but with the facts. And it's like, hey, we have a plan. We're ready. It's documented. Let's go. That's an argument, not the other stuff he's been saying.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah, and that's why, as I was saying, I think on this particular subject, I don't take issue with what they're trying to do, right? I understand that they're trying to get the wheels in motion because again, I haven't been following this, a lot, but it does seem that the situation in California is a bit fragmented, where you've got sort of one county doing it one way, and you got the state doing it another way, and it's sort of like, okay, well, it'd be better if all the ducks were lined up and everybody was agreeing. How is this going to be done? So you don't have business people saying, well, look, I'm just tired of waiting for you guys to go be the government, and we're gonna kind of force your hand, right? So I think stuff like this is okay. He's running the business, he's doing business related things. Like I said, and as Paul mentioned, some of the stuff that he was talking about, in the previous weeks was stuff that obviously caused a bit of turmoil in the community, and frankly, in my opinion, was stuff that didn't have anything to do with the business, right? And didn't belong there. I was not really impressed with the ranting on the earnings call personally, because that was
I don't think anyone was. Yeah,
that was a personal thing for Elon, and it was not the right place, right? If you want to talk about how the coronavirus is affecting the business, you want to talk about the plans related to opening, getting business open back up, things like that. That's what you talk about on earnings calls. You don't start ranting about fascism and oppression and whatever. You can do that on Twitter just because, but anyway.
But I think this is par for the course, though. Like, we know it's pretty factual out there that Elon's a very high functioning human being, right? And with that,
that's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, well, choosing my words wisely. With that comes kind of odd behavior at times, right? Because he processes things that are going on probably on a different plane than the rest of us, right?
Oh yeah.
And so and I think that he has trouble kind of articulating that sometimes, if I can also put it in nice language. But in the end, I think he knows what he's trying to do. And he just didn't do a very good job of explaining that until recently, like this past week, right? And I credit his team for doing that, right? So he needs people around him to do that.
Yeah, I think he just needs to keep his personal opinions on medical issues separate from the discussion about the business, right? Because they really are two separate things. Yeah. One may cross over and affect the other, but ultimately, he has his personal opinions on a wide range of topics, and then there's the business, right? And as a shareholder, even though I only have like 4 shares, it's more just to have my tiny little piece of the pie.
Yeah.
I'm looking at kind of this going like, dude, can you just sort of focus on the business stuff when we're talking about business? Right?
No, definitely.
So from this perspective, I have no problem with it because again, this is the business. Things need to get going, and if he needs to kind of give the government a bit of a nudge, to make it happen, then so be it.
No, I echo exactly what you guys are talking about and thinking. Did you guys see? There was a quick video. I guess it was Grimes that put it out, where he was holding his son and in a chair, and he was just tapping him on the back, trying to burp him. Anyone that's had a child obviously know that's soothing him or trying to get him to burp. And he was staring out into space, and I'm thinking to myself, what are you thinking? Because we all know how, like Paul was alluding to earlier, Elon's mind goes 20 miles an hour, probably way more than any of us. How you said he's high functioning. You look at that quick, 10-second video, and you're thinking to yourself, like, what are you thinking about? Like, what new invention or what plan are you thinking about? And I think that was Sunday night. What are you thinking
probably calculating like orbital trajectories in his head or something,
Who knows? But yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like Paul said, right? I mean, he's one of those guys. I mean, he reminds me. When we're talking just sort of offline, I'll frequently allude to. Reminds me a lot of Steve Jobs, right? Where he's one of these guys where, he's got a lot of ideas. Sometimes he's not best at articulating those to what I call normal people, right? But if you just kind of, go with the flow, chances are you're going to be in a things are going to work out, right? I mean, so Steve Jobs was like that. He had a bad reputation sometimes as a boss. He did a lot of stuff about cursing and yelling and screaming and firing people in the elevator because whatever. Yeah. But he was one of those guys, right? He's a guy like Elon, and there's a handful of others in the tech industry where they're just kind of they're sort of up on a different plane, right, from other people. So every now and then they kind of have to look down and remind themselves, like, oh yeah, there's regular people down there. I need to try to articulate my message.
And that's it. He can't sort of cut you off, but he can't articulate. Like, he's such a brilliant guy, but when it comes to public speaking and articulating and getting his point across, like the social part of it, and we've seen it on those presentations and reveals and stuff like that. A lot of people say he's a terrible public speaker, just like Gary in the comments is saying he basically is a terrible public speaker. But we've expected that, and we've gotten to get used to him being that way, and I think we've all, at least speaking for myself, I've accepted him for who he is, right?
Yeah. I mean, he comes across as genuine, but he's not the greatest in that. I mean, I've done a lot of public speaking myself in past lives, and I mean, it's hard to get up in front of hundreds or thousands of people and speak to them. But I think he does the best he can, and in some ways that's why one of the other things I've said in the past is sometimes I think that Elon needs a Tim Cook. Not necessarily, he doesn't necessarily need Tim Cook, but he needs that guy, right? Yeah. To somehow handle the normal day-to-day business operations so that Elon can go be Elon, right? Which is what Tim Cook did for Steve, right? I mean, Steve was able to be Steve because Tim was sitting there steering the ship and making sure that they didn't hit any rocks. And it would have been much harder if Steve was the only guy doing all of it, right?
True.
I think what Anthony was saying there a little bit was that Elon is a lot like Homer Simpson in a weird way, in that he always means well.
Yes.
But anyhow, Dax, how do you pronounce the kid's name?
Oh, buddy, don't even go there.
I have no idea.
Don't put me on the spot.
I think you just call him X or something.
Yeah. Last week it was a funny thing trying to wrap our heads around it last week. So
this would normally be an odd thing to talk about, but because he's just become a dad again for the 6th time, and I know this isn't on the agenda, I'm kind of straying here a little bit. Sorry about that, Dax. But do you have any sense for what it might be like to be one of his kids? Like, do you think he's like a dad that's taking his kids fishing, or is he taking like the kids to the science museum? Like, what is he doing as a dad? Anyone have any ideas?
No, we can just speculate, right? Yeah. He's such a busy guy.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
You got to wonder. And, and he's been divorced how many times? So I don't, and I'm not saying because you're a husband in one role that reflects how you are as a parent. I'm not saying that at all. There's lots of people that do fine in one category but can't do fine in the other
Yeah,
category.
well,
So
I've heard that he's generally regarded as a very good father, right? So
Good.
Well,
he
that's
treats,
excellent
from
then.
what I've heard, he treats his kids well, and
Yeah.
you
well,
know,
he had some
but
father
I wouldn't
problems
know.
too,
It's just-
right?
Yeah.
Growing up, so yeah.
Okay. I was just interested about that.
Yeah, no, you know what? Like, I totally, like I was saying earlier, I echo what you guys are talking about in terms of how when I first read that tweet on Monday, and I'm like, oh God, what are you doing? But then and somebody on Facebook, a close friend of mine out in the East Coast, she posted something last night saying, oh, I hope this guy doesn't screw up things. And I said, and I didn't go on a rant, but I put a long little reply in the post saying, you know what? I totally agreed with you when I first saw it, but since then I've done some research. I've done just to educate myself or whatever to find out the backstory and the political part of it. And like Paul was saying, that 38-page playbook and how they did it in China, and they took a lot of cues from that. And so far, knock on wood, China's been fine, as we are
As far
told.
as we know.
As far as
Well,
we
they
are told.
actually they had a second wave hit Wuhan.
No, I'm not talking about
There's
China
no- yeah,
itself. I'm talking about
yeah.
the plant,
Yeah.
right? But still, like, who knows what comes out of the plant, right? So we'll assume that everything's fine at the plant in Giga Shanghai, is it? So we'll assume that, and with the playbook and the political posturing coming from all different parts of the, I guess, levels of government, and basically, I don't know if you guys read this or found out about this, that it was basically one or two entities or individuals that were holding up this whole thing. So you got to wonder if they had an agenda of some sort. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to get into, and I want to move on to the other topic in a little bit anyway, so I don't want to prolong this, but and I don't obviously want to get into a conspiracy theory of sorts or anything like that. But we all know, and there's no doubt about anyone listening to this, anyone on a panel, we all know that Tesla has had a hard uphill battle from the beginning of this. There's so many people wanting to see Tesla fail that, you know, I mean, I could see, I take what I read at face value, knowing that the other automotive manufacturing plants, in Michigan or all across the country down in the States there, have opened and they're up and running, and Tesla's the last one to do it. Like, come on, there's got to be something.
But they're the
there.
only one in California, right? So
They're the only one in California.
the impression I get is that it's just government people being government people more than anything else. They're just being slow because they don't. It's not they don't share his sense of urgency. It's just they don't have it, right? So for Elon, this is a big deal because every day represents, you know, lost revenue, lost productivity, whatever. But, you know, if you're some government, you know, whatever, you know, schlep, you know, I mean, you may not necessarily share that sense of urgency that he has. So, you know, if it takes you a week to get something done, it's like, yeah, okay, whatever, you know, it'll be done when it's done, you know, whereas the people who are waiting for you to do that thing are like sitting there, you know, gnawing on their fingernails already going like, what's going on here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know me, I've worked in the public sector, and it's a different animal, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that the urgency for Elon is about getting back to the mission, or just simply getting back to production and sales so that he can continue to fund the mission? And it may be a topic for another podcast. Dax, this will probably take us way off on another path, is whether or not the mission is still something that he believes in.
Yeah, I think it. I mean, to me, I think it's probably a bit of everything, right? But I mean, I guess if you look at the way we described Elon, I mean, if you're somebody like Elon having to deal with the government, right? You know, I mean, it probably drives him nuts, right? So, you know, if he's sitting there going, okay, well, we have a plan, so let's get going here, and the government guy's like, oh, yeah, okay, well, we'll get back to you on Tuesday, you know, and it's like Thursday. He's like, well, what do you mean? Like, it's like
Tuesday of next year.
You know, yeah, like you're getting make me wait 5-6 days just for you to get back to me on, like, why can't we just do it now, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I suspect there's probably a lot of that there where, you know, he's saying, okay, well, like, you know, chop, let's go here. And you know, the government guys are like, yeah, okay, well, you know, it's Friday after 3. So, and Monday's a holiday, you know, even they're all working from home, you know, so we'll get back to you on Tuesday, you know, and that must just drive me absolutely insane.
Exactly. Well, like I said, and like Paul said, we can have a whole dedicated show to this and a separate topic about just that one tweet and what we've learned from it and what our opinions are on it. But you know,
But we should move on
we should move on, and it's a good segue.
because I actually like this next subject. So
Yeah. Well, you know what? I meant to bring this up last week because, as you can see, if you see it on the screen there, this is from May 3rd. So it's a little old, but when I say old, it's not current from like this week type of thing. But this is a tweet from our friend at Green the Only on Twitter. He also goes by Green. He's one of those white hackers, and thanks to him, I mean,
white hat, not white.
Sorry, white hat hackers. Did I say
So there's
white?
a white guy in his basement.
I don't even know what he is, but you're right. I stand corrected. A white hat hacker. maybe. Well, we know he's not a black hat hacker.
Hopefully.
And if anyone after
Next.
that joke, after that joke is done, if
Carry on.
anyone doesn't know what a white hacker is,
White
it's
hat.
I almost did it again. It's a person, and maybe you guys correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm articulating this wrong, and this is why we probably need Ryan on the show. It's someone that hacks, but in a good moral way for the benefit of everyone else, as opposed to a black hat hacker is more malicious, more negative things in mind when they hack.
Why don't we just
Yeah,
call him
yeah,
an
kind of,
ethical
yeah.
hacker and be done
Yeah,
with it?
more or less. Like a white hat is the kind of guy where if he comes across a security vulnerability or whatever, he'll normally notify the companies and give them time to rectify the problem and issue patches before he actually goes public with it.
Yes.
Whereas a black hat, if they were to identify a security vulnerability, they might just keep it to themselves and use it for
Yes.
personal gain or whatever, right?
Okay, we haven't even got to what the tweet is. We're just defining it. But thanks for elaborating on what I said there because you know better than I do, Anthony. So back on May 3rd, Green put out this tweet on Twitter saying, "Bad news Sunday." I guess May 3rd must have been a Sunday. I haven't been keeping track. If you had an infotainment computer in your Tesla replaced, your Model 3 FSD upgrade, MCU 2 retrofit, or MCU 1 eMMC fix, or any other of those fixes requiring a computer swap, consider all your accounts you logged into from that car's computer and compromised and change your passwords. When I read this, I was like, holy, as Paul would say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bullshit?
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Holy Felger carb.
Is that German or Russian?
I have no idea what it is. I just heard it on a show one time.
So,
I think frack is the appropriate term.
But you know what?
Did this? Go ahead, Paul.
So Dax, I mean, there's lots of precedent for this. I'm really surprised that nobody was in front of this at Tesla. But remember back in the day, just a couple of years ago, is that back in the day? Maybe it is. But with trade-in smartphones, we're having the same problem, right? You trade your phone in at Best Buy or something like that, and Best Buy resells it to somebody else, and all of a sudden somebody has your nude photographs. Assuming you keep that kind of thing on your phone. But anyhow,
better put a disclaimer on there, Paul.
Exactly. There's no secret that computers store data, and that data needs to be cleansed in the event that the vehicle in this case goes in for service and gets an upgrade or something like that. But the lesson here is that the consumer has some level of control. You should have two-factor authentication. People, if you don't have that on your accounts, you should put that on your accounts, because even if something like this happens, people won't be able to get into your account because they don't have that second piece of information that's needed to log in.
True.
Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff in the card doesn't support
Yes.
two-factor. So like Netflix doesn't do two-factor, and
Netflix doesn't do
YouTube
factor?
does, but no, not yet.
I
I guess the concern I had about this, and I like, as you know, Dax, I worked in IT for most of my career, and I was in healthcare, so data security is a major concern, because obviously patient health information is one of those things where you absolutely do not want that getting out in the public, or else
It happens all the time.
the big stick is going to come down hard. But to be honest with you, when I was looking at it, I said, someone has dropped the ball here, because just if you read through the story, and I have a few, I actually know two people who have ordered computers from eBay that came out of Tesla dumpsters, right? So my first opinion is, okay, if they're in dumpsters, I really hope that these are e-waste dumpsters, and not just like regular, like let's haul it off to the garbage dumpsters, because that would really suck, especially with Tesla having such environmental creds, so I'm certainly hoping that these are in fact e-waste dumpsters that these people are going into. But to me, the biggest concern is, okay, so you've got people who are selling these things online who presumably are not employees of Tesla. So the question is, well, where are they getting these things from? So if it's just like some dumpster in a back alley outside a service center, and this stuff's just getting dumped in there, and then the public can hop a fence and get it, I mean, that's bad, right? This should absolutely not be in a place at all, whether it's going to a landfill or going to e-waste for recycling, where the public can get access to it, because these computers have it sounds like basically what they're doing is just pulling the computer out of the car, as is, and chucking it in the dumpster. I mean, maybe they hit it with a hammer a couple of times to break it or whatever, but these things are going in there with personal data on them, and to me that is completely unacceptable. If this is, at the very least, they should be going to the customer and saying, hey, can you please log out of Spotify and Netflix and YouTube and whatever else.
But I'd be less
doesn't matter. Yeah, go ahead.
But I'd be less
before you take it out, right?
I'd be less concerned though about Netflix and Spotify than I would be about your Google account, for example. Right.
Yeah, and to me, it's just it's the principle of the thing, right? It's not a question of what it is. I mean, it's not like, what's the worst case? Like somebody might be able to watch Netflix, and again, there's nothing to say that they can necessarily get your credential.
Well, right? I wouldn't want anyone to know that I watched Yentl last night.
Okay, well, yeah, there's that, but to me, it's the principle. It's just the fact that, these things they're ending up in a dumpster where, just random people can, get them. Right, and then these things are ending up on eBay, and to me that is 100% unacceptable. Right, I mean, it's one thing if they're ending up on eBay. I mean, that's an issue that the Tesla really needs to look into. But they're ending up at eBay with customer data still on them. I mean, that's even worse. Right?
Well, here's the thing, Paul. I sent you a quick private message here. Oh. But also, what I'm thinking, there's three problems here that I see. First problem is how, like you said, log out. The Tesla tech telling you to log out, that shouldn't make a difference, or probably won't make a difference if you listen to what Green is saying, because he says some of the passwords aren't encrypted, aren't hashtagged or whatever the term is. They're just really open, just in the plain open in a code there. So I don't know if logging out would have made a difference.
Yeah, well, they should be discarded if you log out, right?
So
hopefully.
Okay, so that's problem one. Problem two is, they're getting into the hands of people like, what is their recycling?
Lost your audio, Dax.
My audio? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Oh, maybe Anthony just... Yeah. The problem number two is that I see is like, what is their... Like, how do they go about? What is their customary protocol or procedure of how they go about doing these recycling? And like, how are they getting into the hands of these people? I mean, the third one, I forget what the third point that I have, but there's basically two or three things that they're dropping the ball on here. And you're right, it is completely unacceptable that they're doing this.
I think back in the day, I keep saying back in the day, but when you had spinning discs with magnets and stuff like that, you could drill it. There were ways to use magnets to demagnetize. With the solid state stuff, and I don't know, Anthony, if you know the answer to this question, but does that make it harder in these situations to wipe data that might be on a solid state chip?
Yeah, so I actually lost audio for about a minute there, so it only came back when Dax had that message pop up on the screen. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but
okay.
But yes, I actually didn't hear what you were talking about.
No, I was just saying, like, back in the day with the with the drives that were on spindles with magnetic discs, all that kind of stuff. You could drill them, you could demagnetize or magnetize them or whatever. But with the solid state stuff, right? What is the equivalent to quickly zap the memory?
I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I know that part of the deal was zapping Well, I mean, it depends what you're using to zap, right? I mean, like in the old days, it was kind of put the hard drives near big magnets, and it would totally wreck the heads and the platters and blow away all the data. But I think that these days, I mean, you can basically zap the circuit boards, like electrically, for lack of a better term, then that'll essentially fry it, right?
Yeah.
So it's not quite the same as using the magnet to wipe a hard drive, but I think you can achieve the same end result by essentially,
Well, yeah. In the chat,
zapping the board so it's just dead, right?
yeah, in the chat room, that's what Hockey Day is saying. He's saying zap the boards.
Yeah.
That's what they did at work, and Nerds for Hire.
So to me, it's just So to me, it's just one of these things where someone's dropped the ball, and if the process as it stands today, or at least as of the day of that tweet, was that customer comes in to get a hardware 3 upgrade, we pull the board, we hit it a couple of times with a sledgehammer to render it inoperable, which obviously is not happening, and then we chuck it in the e-waste dumpster out back. That's not good, right? Because it's obviously not working well, because these things are showing up on eBay, right? And I mean, they shouldn't be showing up on eBay, because that means that because again, it's not like some tech decided to steal one and throw it up on eBay. It's kind of like you hear stories of some people just jumping the fence and dumpster diving to find these things, right?
Well,
so
there should be a process, and there should be a certificate of destruction.
Yeah, well, yeah, I had a conversation with Franklin or Motherfunker about this. I think it was last week, where I said, when I worked in healthcare, we had a process where I mean, I wasn't directly involved with the storage side, but I knew the guys who looked after that. And I mean, we had these massive storage area networks that had thousands of drives in them, and these drives would need to be pulled out at the end of their lifespan and destroyed. And we had a third-party vendor that we used where these drives would be sent to them, and they would be physically destroyed. It wasn't just like wave a magnet at it and chuck it in a box. I mean, they physically destroy these things. And for every single drive that we sent them, we got a certificate back saying that the drive had been properly destroyed. Now, of course, I mean, they could lie, or people go, well, maybe they're just lying, I mean, but the problem is there's consequences to that, because now you're lying to a government entity, and government entities who find out that you're lying to them tend to get agitated. So most companies won't risk that, right? They won't risk the business. So it's the same kind of thing where, they should be, I mean, if they're going to an e-waste recycler to be disassembled, which I hope they would be, and, have either components reused or melted down or whatever.
Obviously, they're not going there.
Yeah, well, I mean, wherever they're going before they go there. So like if they're going in a dumpster, the dumpster should be inside the building, right? It should not be outside where the public has access to it. And once the stuff gets sent to the e-waste recycler and they deal with it there, then there should be they should be getting something back saying, yeah, we've destroyed this. But of course, that assumes that there's data there. If it's just a computer chip, if it's just a board, nobody cares about the board, right? I mean, if I pull the motherboard out of my computer and send it off to an e-waste recycler, I don't ask them to give me a certificate saying, yeah, you destroyed my motherboard. But if I'm handing you something with data on it, where that data hasn't been removed, then yeah, you need to take steps to protect the chain of custody, so to speak, of that data until the components that are hosting that data are no longer in an operable state or whatever, right? So to me, this is a major privacy issue, even though the data in question may not be necessarily personal. Right?
Certainly, no.
But if you took the board out of my car and it wasn't really broken, and now you've got my board. I mean, so you've got access to my Spotify account in theory. You've got access to my music listening history.
Okay, we got and I hear you.
Like,
we got to move on.
All sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah, I hate to cut you off, Anthony.
That's
like
okay.
I said, once again, this is another topic that we can go on for a while. Just one more point, then we're going to move on. I'm going to ask you a quick question, then we're going to move on. Like Paul said, when he first was talking about it, they used to do this with cell phones and people's information got leaked on cell phones. Problem with this is your Tesla login. People can take control of your car with this. That's, I think, the big problem. But my question to you guys before we move on to the next topic is, since this article came out, because I know Paul, I'm not 100% sure about you, Anthony. Did you have the upgrade? You had the upgrade, right?
No, I haven't got it done yet.
No? Okay. Well, you're safe then. So this question only applies to Paul. Paul, have you changed your passwords since this information has come to light?
No.
Neither have I.
Like honestly, I don't think, I'm not sure what data is actually contained there, right? So is there a plain text kind of record of my Tesla ID and my Tesla password? I don't know if you've
Apparently
heard.
there is. Yes,
Apparently there is. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
well, I'm going to go.
There's more
Hold on
to
a second.
it.
I'll be right back.
Do it after the podcast. Just check to see if your car is still there.
Yeah, is your car still there?
Is your car still there, or have I taken control of your car?
Yeah, I think I do think it's important to say that. I mean, people can't use their Tesla credentials to steal your car, right? I mean, worst case, somebody could maybe pop your trunk or your frunk. They could, vent the windows. They could unlock the doors. But, you can't just, you can't give somebody the remote ability to drive the car away. Like
I think you can, can't you?
Well,
Yeah,
no,
I can
you
start the car with the
you,
app.
Yeah, you got to punch in you need passwords for that.
Well, that's it's your Tesla password, is it not?
Well, I guess it's a question of whether
You have a PIN.
but it's not the password. It's a hash, right? So, I mean, you got to remember that when Tesla uses tokens essentially for authentication. So anytime you use an app or log into your Tesla account, you're basically generating a OAuth token that is then used to perform further authentication. So, whether you're using an app like Stats or using a service like Teslafy or whatever, those login credentials are used essentially to generate this token. Okay. And then the token is used going forward. So the credentials, in theory, shouldn't necessarily be there anymore because these tokens are self-renewing. But through the use of that token, you could do stuff to the car, right? But you don't know what the password is. So you can't perform functions that require you to re-authenticate.
Well, maybe that's my fault, because in the article that when Green had posted it, it was a Inside EV's article, and it explained more in depth, and I didn't really elaborate on it. I just basically concentrated on the headline and what the tweet actually said. But in the article, it talks about what passwords are actually out in the open and stuff like that. And it made it sound that your Tesla password, if you had logged into your Tesla account in the browser, your Tesla account
I've never
password,
done
okay, then you should be fine. Don't go anywhere. Stay where you are.
Right. Yeah, well, the browser's a bit different, right? So
Yes. But we're going to move on. We're going to move on from that because we've got a few more topics we want to get to, or newsworthy. But you know what? Let's take a break quickly right now. And there's someone in the chat room. His name is Leo Soul. He asked a question. Maybe we can hammer this question out for Leo before we move on, guys. He says, hey, guys, just got my Model 3 2 weeks ago. Congratulations, Leo, on your Model 3. I hope you're enjoying it. And he's worried about rust. Should or can he undercoat it? He was wondering, is it a safe thing? He lives in Canada just like the three of us. Salt land during the winter is what he's saying. Doesn't say exactly where you live, Leo. Maybe you can elaborate. I know certain parts of Canada are worse than others, but what do you guys think? What's your opinion on rust proofing?
Can I start here?
You can start, yeah.
Well, first of all, Leo, thank you for your question. And Dax isn't letting me actually reply, so I did see you ask that there. But Dax is a bit of a control freak. So
no, you mean reply to the tweet?
I can't reply to the live comments.
No, apparently that's just a limitation of StreamYard. If you wanted to reply, you could go to the live YouTube part.
Oh, I see.
Go through there.
Okay,
yeah.
So you're not a control freak. Okay,
no, not me at all.
I don't undercoat my car. I don't get PPF. I don't do any of those things. And maybe I'm just a lucky guy. I don't know.
You're a fool.
But I have no. For the last 20 years, I don't think I've ever had rust on any one of my cars. That's just my experience, and I guess I was raised to believe that those things are just made to suck money out of your wallet. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, I think I haven't done it either. I mean, the last time I had a car rust-proof was probably a 1986 Honda Civic that I owned when I was like 20 years old.
You needed it back then. Those Hondas were terrible.
It's actually interesting because this is some time ago now, but I think I read an article somewhere that was talking about whether this stuff is really necessary in today's age, right? And the answers seem to be no, because the metal bodies of the vehicles are anodized so much now that it's much harder for rust to really get hold. But again, I mean, I'm not a mechanic. I don't really know these things for a fact. But I haven't rust-proofed any vehicle I've owned in the past 30 years, and I've never had any problems with rust. Now, that said, I haven't kept the vehicles for more than about 5 years at a time. So I think a lot of it really depends on how long you're planning on keeping it. If this is going to be your, 15-year car, then, maybe you might want to ask a mechanic that you trust, not necessarily one who does this type of work, but just ask a mechanic, like, does this really matter? Because mechanics are going to see the cars, right? And they're going to know whether there's rust on them, whether they're, rust-proofed or not.
Yeah.
Don't go to Rust-Oleum and say, hey, should I do this? Because they're going to say yes, right?
That's their business, yeah.
But Leo does make a good point here about there has been news reports about some paint issues, exposed metal. Does that change your mind on this topic at all?
No, you know what? I mean, here's the thing. I agree with the concern. By the way, Leo's from Ottawa, if anyone's wondering, and they get a lot of snow up there. And yeah, I see what you mean by the salt comment. But you know what? I mean, I think the key is exactly what Anthony said, that back in the day, like 30 years ago, the cars that came out, we were all concerned about it. We all grew up here in Great White North, and we saw it. We saw cars that, rusted apart in front of our eyes. Today's cars are completely different. The Tesla, with it being a mixture of aluminum and steel, changes things completely. I personally, to answer your question, I haven't. I've had my car for 2 years. Last time I had it up on the hoist, on the H-hoist, as I got my tires done, there was no problem. I did a quick little video. That was the first year, but the second year I didn't do a video. And there's no problems, no rust or anything like that. Now, with that said, Quebec has a different issue in itself. They've got sand, and they've got sandblasting issues with the cars that don't have fenders, or not fenders, mud guards and stuff like that. That's a different issue altogether. And the paint issues, that's a different issue altogether. I don't think the paint, and I know the paint's supposed to protect the car and the metal and the exposure and stuff like that, but personally, and I'm no expert, don't take, neither of these guys are experts either, so please don't take any of our advice as professional, only as experience.
It's anecdotal.
Yeah, it's an experience. We've all had our cars for roughly about 2 years, so we can say, and we see our car, we take good care of our car and stuff like that. Just because Paul says he doesn't PPF, he doesn't rust, that doesn't mean he doesn't take care of his car. He's very immaculate with his car, and he cares for it a lot. So he takes care of it, and we all monitor the car. And in 2 years, and without giving away Paul's postal code or anything, he lives in a snow belt area, so he sees a lot of snow, and he hasn't had any problems from what I've understood from snow.
Yeah, and also rust-proofing also tends to focus a lot of times like on sort of interior surfaces, like inside the doors and stuff like that. So I mean, if you're having problems with paint on rocker panels or something, which, I mean, and again, we've all heard stories about paint issues, and I tend to think with Tesla these probably get a little bit more notice than other brands. But if you have paint problems on the rocker panels, the best thing you probably do is put some PPF down there. It's not like you go to Rust-Oleum, they're going to start spraying the outside of your car, right? It's more a question of, if there's an issue in a particular area of the vehicle, you have to ask yourself whether rust-proofing would have any effect on that. And if it's an exterior surface, the answer is probably no, right?
Hockey Day comments and adds a good point. Just don't drill the body. And I think that's safe. I think we all agree on that. That's a safe thing.
Yeah, and definitely don't drill anywhere near the battery pack, which is the entire underside of the vehicle. So
it could be good for the 4th of July fireworks.
Well, yeah.
But
I think those are going to be, won't be having those this year.
Yeah, all jokes aside.
But yeah.
I hope we were able to answer your question a little bit, Leo. Like I said, not a professional answer, but like Paul said, anecdotal, because we've lived with the car for probably about 2 years, here or there, give or take a little bit, and we've experienced 2 full winters. Whether you want to say it's been a mild winter this year compared to last year, whatever. I mean, let's not get into debates about volumes of winter and volumes of snow. We've experienced winter. We do get a lot of salt here in southern Ontario laid down on the road, whether it's going to snow or not. The province and the municipalities, they get their shipments of salt in advance at the beginning of the year. Trust me, they throw it down whether they need to or not, because they want to empty those silos come March or April. So they throw enough salt and sand down on the roads as they feel like it. We're going to move on to the next topic. Thanks for that question. If anyone in the chat has a question like Leo, hey, that's what we're here for. Just throw it at us, and we'll do our best to answer. But he said thanks. Oh, I appreciate that. Where we're going? Okay, we're going to. Let me see if I can pull it up here. The next topic. Now, when I saw this, and I don't know if you guys saw this. This is from Clean Technica. They talked about the Tesla Model 3 value in the first year of ownership compared to, and of course they compared it to a BMW 3 Series because that's the closest comparison.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Anyways, the value in the first year of a Model 3 dropped 5.5%. Do you want to know what, if for people that aren't listening or aren't watching and listening at home, do you want to know what a BMW 3 Series dropped? Take a wild guess. Pause this podcast right now, take a wild guess, and then press resume. It dropped 38% in 1 year. And this is a BMW. This is a vehicle, in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, that holds its value. It holds its value pretty well. Any comments about that, guys? Like, in terms of, were you shocked by that number?
No, I wouldn't say shocked. I mean, I think there's this whole perception of vehicles holding their value, but I think that has a great deal to do with whether it's bought or leased or financed, and what the model and everything else. I mean, BMWs tend to be cars that, I've actually owned one, an X5, about 10 years ago, and yeah, I mean it definitely. I actually bought it used, so I had bought I think about an 18-month-old X5, and yeah, it was probably I think it was about, they're asking about $30,000 less than the what it sold for after 18 months, and that was, I think that was about a $85,000 vehicle at the time. So I mean, yeah, it was down in the 50s, right, after 18 months. So I don't, to me. I never really give any thought to resale value of cars. Like, when I buy a car, it's like, okay, I'm going to buy a car, whatever it may be, and that's the car I buy based on whatever decision-making criteria I have at the time. So I never really give any thought to what it's going to be worth 3 years or 5 years from now, because to me that's kind of irrelevant. I know people seem to focus on this a great deal, and I don't know, maybe there's this whole market of people out there who buy cars and then sell them after 18 months, but I don't know.
It's true. It's true. 18 months is probably not. I mean, it's a good benchmark, but you're right. Is it realistic? What's your opinion, Paul?
Well, first of all, I mean, I'm a little skeptical, as usual, about the 5.5%. I know that, like, for example, a lot of the early buyers of Model 3, there was a series of price drops, particularly for the performance model. I don't know if you remember that, about a year or so ago. So, I mean, does that take this into account? I'm still very surprised. It's a very low number. It's almost like practically nothing in terms of depreciation. Now, I know they're a little bit different, Teslas, in terms of, full self-driving, if you have that package, and how long that they can potentially last versus an ICE vehicle. But I don't know if that's a real world number. I suspect that it's probably not. I'd have to probably study it a little bit further. But I think it is something that's important to a lot of people who either may need to sell their car for whatever reason. Now's a great example, right? So if you aren't working because of COVID, and that really sucks, and I certainly apologize to anyone out there who's in that situation. It's not a good situation, but you might need to sell your car. So I do think it's relevant that there are occasions to do this, and resale value is important. I think Teslas are probably going to outperform ICE, but I'm not sure it's by that much.
Yeah, I think also the article doesn't really talk, certainly in relation to that particular chart, they don't really talk about which model of Model 3 we're talking about, because like I've seen some anecdotal evidence that suggests that the resale value of some of the Model 3s, especially the long-range rear wheel variant, which is no longer available, or certainly not available in North America anyway, tends to actually get really impressive, resale prices. I think
range is king.
Yeah, somebody shared a video. I can't remember if it was you, Dax. This is several months ago now, but it was actually an auction in Toronto, where it was a long range rear wheel drive, and I think it went at vehicle. This is a vehicle auction, so this is selling to the people who are going to sell the car, right? And it got like almost, I think it was like $58,000 or something, which is pretty impressive considering that vehicle at the time that it came out in Canada was about 65, I think.
Yeah.
So it was only like a $7,000 price drop after a year and a bit.
Maybe that's where this 5.5% came from.
The question is which Model 3 we're talking about, But I think in general there's a market for them, maybe more so than others, because maybe it's one of those things where people say, well, if I buy a used one, I'll save myself $5,000 or $10,000, and
That's what Mark Lindsay is saying in the comments. He's saying high demand keeps resale high.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I'm not saying that the Model 3 is going to be not performing better than an ICE vehicle, or against something like a BMW Model 3, or what are they called again? BMW Series 3? I don't know.
3 Series, yeah.
Series 3, yeah. I think it's going to outperform. I just, this seems like a crazy number to me. And I do have some experience. It's a little bit different. I went to, we were going to trade in our Model X for a Model Y. And we have a 2017 Model X. It only has 55,000 kilometers on it. Practically no miles. And the retail value of that car was approximately 120,000 Canadian, and Tesla offered us 52,000 or something for it. So
wow.
Yeah, I mean, that could be just Tesla being smart, turn around and resell it for more and make a nice little profit, or they have no interest in dealing with used cars, so they just auction it off. But still, I mean, that's my experience, where I was really surprised to have Tesla offer me less than 50%.
Wow.
After 2 years.
Yeah, I think also with BMW specifically, and this is a sort of baseline anecdotal evidence that I've seen, is that a lot of people that drive BMWs are leasing them, right? I know a lot of people who drive leased BMWs, and they're getting the new, like the guy across the street.
You should send this chart to him.
Yeah, well, I don't. Well, but the thing is, if you're leasing the car, then you really don't care, because you're paying X number of dollars a month to get a whatever variant of BMW you wanted for and a lot of these leases are like 12 to 24 months in the BMW space.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're getting a new BMW every 2 or 3 years, all you really care about is which car and what's my lease payment. You don't care about resale value, right?
You don't care.
Yeah.
But then BMW has to sell that car, right? And they've already gotten a good chunk of money out of the person who's leasing it, right? Because the leases are not cheap on those cars. Because I looked into it before I started seriously thinking about the Model 3. So this would have probably been around the 2017 time frame, I guess. Or when, I don't know how long ago it was now, but I was looking into what if I got a 4 Series or something, and I mean that thing was freaking expensive, By the time you throw in the multiple $7,000 option packs that all stack on top of each other, just so you can get a heated seat or something, you're looking like a $70,000 or $80,000 vehicle, and to get that on a lease, you're paying like $1,500 a month, $1,800 a month for this thing. So I mean, they're raking in the cash off people leasing these things, especially on business leases and corporate cars and stuff like that. And so I mean, I tend to think that part of this is probably the fact that in order for them to sell these things as certified pre-owned, they got to knock the price down, right? I mean, because even when you knock it off, I mean, if you're looking at a 3 Series, nicely optioned in Canada, is probably going to run you in the mid 60s at least, right? So if you're knocking $20,000 off that, it's still a $45,000 car, right? So you really have to, I just think they got to drop the price more just to get people to buy them once they're coming back off lease and stuff like that, right?
I agree. Let me just go through the chart here for people at home that aren't watching, that are listening. It's IC cars, best cars to buy, and new and used. Okay, so just the ranking. Number 1 is Tesla Model 3 at 5.5%. And this is how much you're losing. Number 2, surprisingly, and we won't get into why, but surprisingly, it's I find it surprising. A Ford Ranger at 11.4%. Number 3 is a Chevrolet Traverse at 11.7%. Number 4 is a good old Honda Civic hatchback, 11.9%. So all pretty close, within 0.5% between 2 and 4. And the last one is a Honda Fit, also surprisingly at 12.5%. So those are the top 5. But in this article, and I was perusing it as you were talking, Anthony, to see if I could find out what model or what trim level of the Model 3. And I couldn't find it. It may be in here. This just goes to show you how well prepared I am for these topics.
Yeah, well, I mean, later on they mentioned the SR Plus, but that's in the cost of ownership analysis.
Yeah,
So.
I was going to say, this is what I found. I found a Tesla Model 3 versus an Audi A4 cost of ownership, and also against a BMW 330i. And after 5 years cost of ownership, I mean, the Model 3, and it's a standard range, keep in mind, comes in at 31.8. And I'm assuming these are American
US
prices.
dollars. Yeah.
Yep. The Audi comes in at 43.4, and the BMW 3 Series comes in at almost 51,000. So that's, I mean, I didn't bring it up for the cost of ownership part of it. I brought it up for the resale. But you guys both bring up good points in terms of how it is. Like I said, like how Paul said, for none of us here are in the market of selling our cars anytime soon, so we don't really care about the resale value. But it's good to know, because life throws you curveballs sometimes, right? Just like this pandemic, and sometimes you're in a position where you may have to. So heaven forbid you do, but if you have to, that's where the resale value comes in. You may not have anticipated it or wanted or planned for it, but sometimes you got to do it. Let's move on to our next. You know what? I was going to say, let's move on to our next topic, but we have another question from one of the listeners, and I'm throwing this. It's funny because these guys on the panel have no idea. I mean, we have a little guidelines, a little game plan of topics that we're going to go, but when I sort of go off script and I go onto these questions, I sort of throw them for a loop, so I apologize, guys. But Mojito, I hope I'm getting your name right, Mojito 5606 asks, how are your door seal? I had mine for a year, and it seems like the door seals does not make full contact on the glass as it originally did.
Does that mean up at the top of the window, or?
I'm guessing when I thought originally he meant the door seals around the whole entire door, but then further down into the question, it talked about around the contact around the glass. So yeah, maybe he's talking about the glass.
Yeah, no, mine's still pretty tight.
Yeah, I haven't had any problems with mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, mine's been fine. Now I know some people, not really the door seals in terms of making full contact and any kind of rubber seal in the winter. If you're talking about in the winter, Mojito, that may be an issue because rubber isn't as flexible and malleable in the winter like anything is in colder weather than it is in the warmth of the summer and stuff like that. So maybe that may be an issue if maybe that's what you're talking about. But if you're talking about door seals in terms of wind noise, I know a lot of people, I think Franklin did one. I have a set for Ryan that was given to me to give to Ryan that I've had for about 6 months, and he was just asking me about it a couple days ago. I thought I lost it, but I found it, that I have to give to him. And those are door seals, aftermarket door seals that you can put on. I think you did a video too, did you not, Paul? About door
no,
seals?
I haven't done that, but I do have a wind noise issue.
You do?
Yeah.
Did you do the door seals, Anthony? I thought some.
No, I haven't
Okay,
done
sorry,
any of that.
I'm missing. I thought one of you guys did a video about the door seals, but there's
I think
a
one of
couple.
Franklin. I think Franklin did.
Maybe Franklin did it. Yeah, no, you're right. It was Franklin I'm thinking of. Sorry, I apologize to mix you guys up, but apparently it makes a difference for the sound and the kind of the wind issue. What's your wind issue, Paul?
Well, it's not wind getting into the car. It's just road noise, right? I mean, my, just like yours, Dax, is a very early model, like in terms of the build, the production date on it, and the VIN, like 29,000 XX, which in Canada is a pretty fresh
Oh yeah,
vehicle.
the paint wasn't dry.
The paint wasn't dry, but I mean, when you're driving down the road, like down the freeway, I have to really do miracles in Final Cut Pro to get the audio so that people aren't going to complain about all the wind noise or the road noise coming from my car. It's pretty loud. And I don't know if anyone else in the comments has a Model 3 and wants to chime in on whether or not they've experienced, a lot of road noise in their Model 3. I'd be interested to know that. How about you two?
The only time I notice more wind noise or road noise in my car is in the wintertime when I have the winter tires on. Other than that,
That does make a difference, yeah.
And I've just got some new tires that I just got, new Summers, that aren't the stock Michelins that came with the car, with the foam in the middle, in the inside the tire, and I haven't noticed any difference in terms of wind noise, or road noise.
Yeah, I think with EVs, I don't know, like I've driven quite a number of cars in my life because I'm like old, but yeah, it's like I think it's more noticeable in the Model 3 because the vehicle itself is a fair bit quieter in general when it comes to stuff like ambient engine noise and stuff like that. But I don't find it something that I view as problematic. It's quieter, but I just I usually have my music going and stuff in the car anyway, so it's not like I'm sitting there in complete utter silence, getting droned to sleep by wind noise or something.
Well, I only really notice it when I do a video, right? Because then it's like,
because you don't have your radio on.
Exactly. If you have the radio on, it's
drowns it out. Yeah. No, Mojito, we're going to move off this question in a second. I think we've answered it to death. But Mojito's just adding some information. He's from Florida, so he's doesn't have any winter. It gets pretty cold in Florida.
Love bug season.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, maybe it's all the bugs that hit you. But he says, he thought that it would be harder seal up north. He's talking about the main door. And after he washes it, he sees more water and humidity seeping in. So maybe if that's the case,
maybe try putting some rubber conditioner on there, because we use that up here. You do that, guys.
Yeah.
I assume you condition the rubber in the winter. Yeah. So, there's one. What's it called? Gummy Pleft or something? Is a brand on Amazon. It's very popular. It's like it's gummy like gummy bear, and Pleft is like PFLE.
When you say that, I just think of the song "Gummy Bear" that my kids listen to. But no.
But yeah, try some rubber conditioner on the seals. Maybe they're drying out a little bit or something. You can get them at car detailing stores and stuff like that, or on Amazon. Just to search for rubber conditioner, but don't make sure it's something that's in a bottle with a sponge tip where you just kind of rub it on. Don't like spray it. Don't get a can and spray it, because you get it all over the headliner and everything.
Or, if it's a fairly new car, I think you said, was it you or the other gentleman that said, you've had it for a year, so you still got warranty on it. If water's seeping in, you know what? I would make a service appointment, have a Tesla mobile guy come to your house or place of work and just take a look at it. And if they say
there shouldn't be water. Yeah, there shouldn't be any water getting in the car.
Yeah, definitely not. If you got water, even if it's condensation coming from the other side or something, or in between the seal, you shouldn't be getting that.
No.
Yeah, definitely have service look at it if that's happening. If it's just kind of one of those things where it gets a little bit foggy or something, then but maybe have them take a look at it. Worst case, they'll find something, and if they don't, then they don't. But
this is so cool. We're saying to people, have someone take a look at it, and then we're sounding very professional, even though we're not.
Well, because it's because with Tesla service is not a big deal, right? You just have them come out.
It's so quick.
If you're at home or whatever, they just come to your house and they look at it and they'll tell you what the deal is, and off you go. It's not one of these things where you got book half a day off work. Of course, we're not doing that now, but you know what I mean. Like your traditional car dealer experiences. You call them up, they book you in for like 6 weeks from now. And then you spend two and a half hours sitting in the lounge. While
but you do get a muffin.
Don't get me started about Toyota service. Last time I was there before this whole thing. Okay.
If you go to Mercedes in Burlington, you actually have to pay for the muffin.
You have to pay for the muffin.
You have to pay for the muffin, but you will get a free cappuccino. And then when you go to pay for the car, they'll tell you that your air filter needs to be changed because it always needs to be changed.
Okay, folks. Let's move on. We're a little short for time. We still got a couple other questions that I want to get to. And one more quick topic. Let's be very brief on this one. I just wanted to bring it up. I thought it was a funny thing. When I say funny, interesting. The first EV from Lexus is coming with a 1 million kilometer warranty, and it's going to be released in China first. And then, sorry for knocking on my
So first of all, the headline's wrong. It's a 1 million kilometer battery warranty,
yes,
not a vehicle warranty. So let's just get that out of the way right there. They're not saying the car is going to last 1,000,000 kilometers.
No, because it's the battery. Exactly. Like, I mean, the powertrain, and we get it and all that.
It's 10 years on the battery. It's 3 years on the car. So
And this Lexus is called the UX300E. It's an electric crossover. It's got a 54.3.
It's very small.
Yeah, but check this out.
Battery.
It is a small battery. It's a little bit smaller. It's basically like a Leaf battery, from what I understand.
yeah. But it's also for the Chinese market. So I mean,
yeah.
large vehicles are not the norm over there, right?
It says it's going to get
point.
a 400 kilometer hour range on a single charge. Now, keep in mind that's the NEDC rating scale, and
Yeah, and it's pretty generous.
Yeah, anyone that knows that, that's far fetched. So.
I think we get what, 700?
Yeah, it's like
Yes.
it's 650 or something on NDEC, and it's 499 on what's the US one?
The EPA.
EPA. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, 400 kilometers on NDEC is probably about 3 on EPA.
Yeah,
maybe?
325, 3. Yeah, on the EPA. So. But
I think it's okay for 50. But that's like an SR Plus pack, basically. SR Plus is 50 kilowatt hour pack, and there it's getting what 429 in Canada on the SR Plus.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah.
This is like you said, Anthony. It's a 10-year new owner warranty. I love how it says new owners. Okay, not actually no, I misread that. 1,000,000 kilometers with 621,000 mile warranty, including the battery degradation if it falls below, and I think this is becoming the standard, 70%. It's anywhere between 70, 75. I think some companies are as low as 65 even. So that's not bad. It's just what I find ironic, and maybe it's just my whole negativity with Toyota and how, and even throwing Honda and even throwing Mazda or any of these other
don't
car
forget
companies.
Nissan.
Yeah, well,
Chuck
Nissan at least,
them all in the bucket.
at least Nissan has the Leaf, and they've been doing something. And yeah, Nissan is famous for prototypes. We're going to show you this, and it'll never come out. We'll show you this, and it'll never come out. But at least they're showing something. Whereas Toyota and Honda, they're holding on to this. What is it called? The hydrogen.
Hydrogen. Yeah.
It bugs me so much. I even forgot the name. The hydrogen. So I find it a little rich when I see these things come out and how they talk about it, but they'll only put it out in the European market. It just
Chinese market.
Sorry, Chinese market, and then maybe in Europe after.
Yeah, they're talking about maybe Europe. But yeah, I mean, I think if they're confident in their product, then it's great. To put numbers on that. I mean, like 1,000,000 miles is a long way, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's kind of like, okay, well, if the battery will take you that far, but I mean, maybe the car won't.
Well, that's with any car these days, right?
Yeah.
It's the car will fall apart.
Because I mean, that's the thing, the battery pack is not, it's not like a separate entity, but I mean, it's sort of like saying that we'll give you a warranty of like 1,000,000 kilometers on the engine in your car, but the car itself only has 3 years, right?
Yeah.
So like it's great. If 10 years from now you can actually drive that car 1,000,000 kilometers, that's wonderful. But
Yeah.
What if the car falls apart after 5 years? Then that 10-year 1,000,000 kilometers doesn't really matter so much. But I think I guess we could look. If you want to look at it from a positive perspective, I guess it speaks to the confidence in their battery in the pack itself.
Well, is it confident? Oh, by the way, this article was brought to us by Drive Tesla Canada, the guys there.
Yeah.
But here's my question. Sorry, Paul, I sort of interrupted you by giving credit out. What were you going to say?
No. Oh, I was just wondering if this is Lexus's way of dipping their toes in the water, so to speak, gain some experience before bringing something to North America.
Yeah, it very well could be. I mean, we know the EV market in China is huge, right?
Yeah.
So why not, get all your profits there? First
Well,
and foremost.
it's a good place to start off, right? I mean, the good Chinese government offers very compelling reasons for people who live in China to choose an EV over a gasoline car, much more so than here. It's actually quite punitive to buy a gasoline car in China now compared to buying a electric vehicle. And
True.
so I think if you're going to introduce one somewhere, especially if it's a relatively small, physically small vehicle, that looks sort of similar to an SR Plus in capacity and size and things like that, then that's probably a good place to do it, as opposed to North America where people kind of want big cars. So where the incentives aren't quite as generous, or where buying a gasoline vehicle is not viewed as a something you're going to be punished for.
Yeah.
So I think it makes sense for them to introduce it there.
One last point on that, Paul, and then we're going to move on.
Sure.
You're going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I'm still of the mindset that all EVs are good. The more on the road, the better. And obviously, my preference is Tesla, and I love the Tesla product, but I love to see any EVs
Good point.
coming out in the marketplace to replace the ICE vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing I will point out, if you look at the very last paragraph of that article, the thing is damn expensive. It's like $71,000 to $75,000 Canadian for what basically amounts to in the Tesla world would be an SR Plus, right? which in Canada is a $55,000 vehicle.
Yeah,
so,
it's Toyota trying to take Lexus badging and make money on it because they think they can. Like I said at the very beginning, I wanted to just briefly touch on this topic, and I'm being told by my boss here, Gary, to say thank you and next and move on. I think it's his point. Because there's a couple questions I've got from listeners that were nice enough and took the time and energy out of their busy schedule and email me a question. Once again, if you want to have any questions, you can send them to teslatalksquestions@gmail.com, and I will take every question as long as it's nothing personal or polite, and we'll get them on the show. So, guys, without any further ado, you guys don't mind answering some questions here from the viewers? This one is from a guy named Rich. He says, "Hey guys, I really love the podcast." And by the way, there's two questions. I don't know which one I put up first, so these are in no random order. "Hey guys, I really love your podcast." Oh, thank you very much, Rich. "I was reading a few days ago that there was a way to request your data that Tesla has on you. How do I go about getting this information? Thank you so much, Rich." Now, this is fitting. It's fitting because I've got a guy right here. I'm going to full screen him here. Yes. Hey, Paul, welcome to the podcast. Paul just did a video recently on this topic and this procedure. You want to talk about that and maybe answer Rich's question?
Yeah, absolutely. I did a video on this, I think, on Sunday, this previous Sunday. I go through the details of how to actually request your data, and actually you could probably throw that link in the description maybe after the podcast so that people can access it. But basically, it's very simple to go and ask. But what's happening is a lot of people are getting emails back from Tesla saying that unfortunately it's not available in your region, or that there's no data. I got an email saying that there was no data for me. Other people are saying it's not. Other people are getting an email that says it's no data for your region, and it's creating a little bit of confusion actually. So I'd say go ahead and try it, but don't have any expectation of getting data back unless you live in California or somewhere in the European Union. And I think Tesla probably could have gotten ahead of a lot of the confusion around this if they just, at that landing page where you can request the data, they said, if you don't live in California or an EU country, don't fill this out.
Exactly. Have you tried it yet, Paul? What's your name? Anthony?
No, I haven't. I'm aware of it, but I haven't tried it.
Yeah, and I was going to do the same thing. I was going to try it out, and then after Paul's video and his reply and response and outcome, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll hold off. But it's funny, since you said that, I was on Twitter yesterday, and Darren from Drive Tesla Canada, he had put out a tweet asking people about the same thing, and he had an article stating going about how to do it, and I was hoping he'd put your video in there, but he didn't. So, but anyways, he went through the steps on how to do it in the article, and there was one person that said that they got a reply, and it was a PDF, and it was a pretty substantial PDF, like in terms of size. He hadn't opened it yet, and once again, this is Twitter, so who knows? I'm not saying the person was lying or not, but who knows? They said it was a substantial size PDF that was replied. Now, once again, I think if I'm not mistaken, he was in California.
Okay. Well, I thought you were supposed to get some kind of a CSV file out of it. And viewer had a question, the Coles notes on what kind of data people are getting.
Yeah.
So if you go to the page, it tells you that you get information about everything from how many times you opened your door, or to more advanced stuff like your use of autopilot, which is what I was interested in. I wanted the data around the autopilot stuff. But basically, it's a wealth of data on just about anything you can think of that the Tesla computers might be tracking. So I was very excited, actually, to see this data, and then a little disappointed that I didn't get it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting actually, because if you think about how much data is available through the API, which is only a subset of the total that is collected by Tesla regarding the vehicle itself, not so much the owner, but the vehicle. I mean, if they're sending all that, I mean, it's a hell of a lot of information. And just even parsing through that could be quite onerous for people.
Oh yeah.
If you think about it's tracking the GPS location of the car, like the entire time the car is moving. I mean, just driving to the grocery store could be, like pages and pages and pages of GPS coordinates, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I would be surprised that it would be a PDF. That makes no sense to me.
But well, we'll take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that answers your question, Rich. Give it a try. If you're in Cali or if you're in Europe, you may get some luck, or maybe just give the program some time, and it'll branch out to everywhere. Moving on to our next question is from a gentleman named Steve Hood. Here we go. Let me see if I can pull this question up. Hold on. Add to stream. Here we go. Yeah, Steve Hood. He says, I think I know the answer, but I'll ask anyways. Is there a way to disable the flashing headlights in Sentry mode? They seem to go off or on for odd reasons, and our neighbors have complained about it. Thanks.
I believe the answer is no.
Okay. Well, I did.
I haven't heard of any. Well, I mean, there's certainly no menu option to do it. So, I mean, I'm not aware of any way to do it. So I think the answer is no.
No, you are correct. The answer is no, and I've done a little bit of research to look into this for Steve since he's asked the question, and you are correct. The answer is no as of now, and I wish, you know what, you know me, I'm so prepared. There was a tweet, I want to say a few months ago. I remember looking at it, and did I save it? Of course I didn't. There was a tweet that somebody asked Elon this exact same thing, minus the neighbor. Annoying the neighbor part, and Elon had replied yes. So it does sound like it's a future thing that they're going to add into the software or the menu of some sort to just make it like almost like a stealth Sentry mode where it'll record you but it won't notify you from the flashing lights.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, one of the great things about Tesla is, it's constantly
absolutely.
improving. So, I mean, with any other car, if you bought, whatever brand X car, and, the behavior of the vehicles is essentially set for the life of the vehicle. Whereas with the Tesla, you can sit there and say, well, today it's, whatever day it is, the 13th of May, and as of right now, you can't do that. But 2 weeks from now, maybe you can. So, and if that happens, then every vehicle will be able to do it.
Look at Joe mode.
Yeah, it's not just the new cars that come afterwards, right? So
that's what we love about one of the few things, or one of the many things we love about Tesla. Well, there's your answer. What was it, Steve? Yeah, it was Steve. It is coming in a future update. Just hang in there and maybe talk to your neighbors and say, hang in there, or maybe, I don't know, maybe
park your car facing away from the neighbor's house.
Facing it towards a garage if you've got a garage, if that's possible, unless you park on the street or something like that. But anyways, that brings us to the end of another fun and interesting podcast. You guys have fun?
Yeah, I always have fun.
We always
Thank
have
you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
No. Thanks for coming on. I will start with you, Paul. Where can people find you if they wanted to?
YouTube.com/Tesla Canuck.
Cool.
Basically, Tesla Canuck on any social platform.
There you go.
You can find me.
Anything coming out soon that we should wait with bated breath on?
Yeah, I've got a really good video that I'm going to be releasing soon that has to do with.
Don't give it away. I don't want you to give it away.
No, I'm not going to give it away, but it's going to combine our Model X and our Model 3.
Oh, sweet.
So
tug of war, side by side.
I hadn't thought about that. That's a great freaking idea.
Yeah, a great way to kill both your cars at once.
Yeah, exactly.
No, so yeah, you can find them, like he said, any social media platform at Tesla Canuck. How about you, Mr. Anthony?
I'm basically Tesla Milton on Twitter. I do have a YouTube channel, but I don't really post there very often. But if you look for Tesla Milton on Twitter, then that's where you'll find me. I've been a little quiet on Twitter lately. A lot of a lot of stuff going on. Sometimes you just need to step back and take a little pause. But I'm hoping that as this coronavirus business hopefully starts to move past us by in the coming weeks or months. And
Yep.
a lot of the consternation about various around that subject passes us by. That things will go back to being a bit more about conversations about the vehicles and the company and things like that, and less
Exactly.
about who's right and who's wrong about whatever opinion they may have on something to do with
Yes, this COVID
illnesses.
is very polarizing, and at least we all, the three of us, live in Ontario, and our premier of Ontario says that he has an announcement tomorrow. We have a premier. It's basically the same as like a governor, I guess, down in the States. That's what I'm basically talking about, and they're slowly going to start easing things slowly, but not too fast, because we've seen some countries that are doing it a little bit too fast, and you were seeing spikes. We don't like to see that. So you know what? We just have to be patient. Spikes are bad. But anyways, I don't want to end off on a bad note. Thanks for joining us, folks. If you had a good time, join us here next week, as we'll do this over again. Hopefully on a Wednesday, maybe Wednesday or maybe Tuesday. We'll see. Just look on Twitter or on Facebook or YouTube, and you'll get a little announcement, a little notification of when it's going to go up. Anyone in the chat room there, thanks for joining us. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for your interactiveness.
Yeah, it was great interactive today.
Yeah. Until then, guys, we'll see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take it easy. Thanks.
Over and out.